I'm Rachel.
And I'm Leah. And this is Hashtag History, the podcast for both history nerds and history haters alike,
where we dive into history's greatest stories of controversy, conspiracy, and corruption.
Hey guys, this is Hashtag History episode 32, and I'm Rachel.
And I am Leah.
And I'm back. We've been doing this thing with the past 3 episodes where Leah does a takeover episode for the first episode of the season. How many times did I say episode in one sentence?
You said episode instead of season, that's why.
Yeah, let's not do that again. So... If you guys don't like hearing me talk, just go back and listen to the first episode of every season and you won't have to, although that's kind of weird too. You'd literally be listening to like 3 episodes. So
yeah.
But if you don't like the sound of my voice and you love the sound of Leah's, please do that. Watch our numbers like skyrocket on the first episode of every season.
No.
But yes, I am here and I'm taking things back over for my first episode of season 4. And I wanted to start us off with a badass girl power story.
I love it.
We are talking this week about Sophie Scholl. And if her name doesn't sound familiar, it's because we don't talk about her enough. Scholl was an activist who worked against the Nazi movement during World War II and, when caught, was executed by guillotine at the age of 21. So awkward transition here, but Leah, you want to introduce our cocktail segment this week?
Yeah, I love it. I love that we always say like, and then they died. Let's drink.
It's the perfect time to drink.
Oh my gosh, we're terrible, but also pretty cool. As we will discuss, Sophie Scholl, that's hard to say.
Yep, it's difficult.
Okay. Can you guys tell this is episode 2 of the night? And we've already had a drink?
A couple.
Okay. So, as we will discuss, Sophie Scholl was part of the White Rose movement, and Miss Rachel sent me over this recipe for a white rose cocktail, which made my job super easy this week.
Yeah, I just came across, honestly, when I was doing my research about Sophie Scholl, it kept talking about the White Rose movement that she was a part of, and then literally one of the tabs, or one of the searches that popped up was a white rose cocktail. So I was like, okay, that was easy.
Yeah. So the cocktail was actually created and popularized long before World War II. I found reference to the cocktail in Hugo Enslin's 1917 book, Recipes for Mixed Drinks. So it was, at the very least, created like 25 years before World War I or World War II, if not earlier.
Interesting.
Yeah. So the ingredients include 1 3/4 ounce of gin.
God, again, if you guys listened to last week's episode, I picked a gin cocktail last week too.
It's just one of the most common for cocktail. Like, it really is. It's hard to find a cocktail that isn't made with flippin' gin.
Agreed.
Ugh. Anyways, gin, maraschino liqueur, which I'm excited to try.
Yes.
Orange juice, lemon juice, and then an egg white to add that frothiness to it, which grosses you out, but I've had it before in drinks, so I'm actually excited about it.
Well, I think in my defense, I am not particularly talented with separating the yolk from the egg white, and so there may be a tiny, tiny, tiny bit of yolk in my drink as well as an eggshell. So
that's gross. And there was actually a shell in mine.
Okay.
So don't feel bad about that.
Well, and I shared with Leah, maybe this is good luck. It felt like really insanely wasteful. I'm sure we have listeners that were like, you could have used that yolk and saved it, for future
breakfast
whatever.
Tomorrow.
Yes, that's true. We could have. I did not. And unfortunately, I did not, because mine was a double yolk. Is that luck or something? I cracked it and 2 yolks came out.
Yeah. You might have negated the good luck, though, by throwing it away.
By throwing it in the trash, yeah.
Yeah. Anyways, you shake all that stuff up with ice and you pour it into a wine glass. And I literally looked for like an hour to try to find some cool thing about this, and I just couldn't. So we're just going to try it and not have any fun facts about this drink.
Fun fact is there's an eggshell in it. Here we go.
Here we go.
Cheers.
Cheers. Did yours get frothy?
No.
Did you shake?
Mixed.
Oh, yeah, that's why you're supposed to shake. Yeah, it's fine.
If you guys listened to last week's episode, I feel like it tastes exactly the same as last week's episode, except like maybe a tiny bit of like cherry, or there's some other flavor in there. Maybe it's the cherry or it's the lemon. I'm not sure, but there's like one other hint of some kind of flavor. Otherwise, it's the exact same drink we had last week.
Yeah. Uh-huh. Plus an egg white.
Which I don't taste. But like you said, it's for the frothiness. Mm-hmm. Which mine is not frothy because I just mixed it very gently with a spoon. So I'm not a professional over here, guys. Which at some point during this episode, you may even hear me crunch on an eggshell. So
gross.
So gross. Okay, guys. So let's get to this episode.
I'm so excited.
Me too. Sophie Scholl was born Sophia Magdalena Scholl on May 9th, 1921. So happy late birthday to Sophie, since her birthday would have been just a few days ago at the time that this episode is released. She would have been 99 this year. In fact, one of Sophie's sisters, Elizabeth Hartnagel Scholl, just passed away this year on February 28th, 2020, one day after her 100th birthday, which is like so freaking amazing. But we're going to get back to Elizabeth at some point in this episode, so remember her name. Now, Sophie grew up primarily in Ludwigsburg and then later in Ulm, Germany. And here's just a heads up, Leah, that I may depend upon you heavily to help me with the appropriate German pronunciation of many, many words coming up in this episode.
Yeah, I was going to say Ludwigsburg, probably.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm just going to pause and look at you.
Okay.
And then you can just take over.
Okay.
Okay. So, actually, let's start off this whole episode with an iconic picture of Sophie, just so we can keep this image of this badass woman we are talking about today in our minds as we learn about her.
Yep, there she is. She looks like a young lady. I don't know. How old is she in this picture?
I think she was like late teens, early 20s.
Yeah, she's cute.
Yeah, I think she just like, she looks pretty average.
I really like her sweater. Mm-hmm. And her hair's cute.
Yep. Yeah, I know sometimes it sucks when I like put a picture in, like, how do you describe that person? But I want to be able to put that picture up on Instagram later. That's why.
Yeah, obviously. That's why.
Yeah.
No, but she looks like your average German teenager in the 1940s or 30s. When was that?
Yep, 30s.
Yeah.
As was required of Sophie and all young ladies her age, she had to join the
Bund Deutscher Mädel,
or in English, the League of German Girls, when she was 12 years old. The League of German Girls was an organization that all German youth were required to join that would essentially raise them up and teach them how to be proper Nazi women, i.e., training them to be wives, mothers, and homemakers. They did this by performing activities such as learning about German history, of course, skewed to promote Nazi propaganda, PE like running and gymnastics, and, just your standard brainwashing.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
One of these major forms of brainwashing was in relation to Rosenschan. Rosenschan was the concept of racial defilement of an Aryan involved in a relationship with a non-Aryan. It was heavily pressed upon the League of German Girls to avoid Rosenschan completely. And I believe the majority of people listening to this know what I'm referring to when I say Aryan or non-Aryan, but just in case, The Nazis, under the leadership of Adolf Hitler, believed in a master race, the Aryan race, composed of German and other Northern Europeans that were believed to be the highest class of race in the world. Anyone that was not of German or Northern European descent was considered to be non-Aryan and therefore impure and lesser than. Another major brainwashing technique that occurred within the League of German Girls was the encouragement of creating tension between children and their parents. There is this one really awful piece of propaganda for the League that shows a German girl that was part of the League arguing with her mom, who had insisted that the girl go see a doctor that just so happened to be a Jewish doctor. Fortunately for the German girl, she argued with her mom, remembering the lesson she had learned while part of the League regarding not associating with non-Aryans, especially Jews, and she was able to escape being molested by the doctor just in time.
Oh my gosh.
Right. The piece ends with the mom agreeing that she was wrong and that the League is always right.
This reminds me of just a couple weeks ago, we watched Jojo Rabbit.
Jojo Rabbit?
Yeah, it's like it's a movie. It's like a satirical kind of dark comedy about a young boy who was in the male whatever version of the
German youth or the Hitler youth.
The Hitler youth, and he his imaginary best friend is Hitler. Yeah.
That sounds really good.
Yeah, it's like if you like kind of dark comedies, it reminded me a lot of the guy that does like The Life Aquatic and those kinds of movies. Anyways, I'm throwing super random shit out.
Yeah, sorry, I don't know Life Aquatic either.
No, it's fine. But yeah, it's like a very satirical. You have to be okay with like them making fun of.
Yeah.
That
like harsh humor.
Yeah.
I do like that stuff.
Yeah. I liked it.
Now, when Sophie originally joined the League, she did so with a lot of excitement and enthusiasm. And I will never, ever, 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 ever justify any component of the Nazi movement. But I think one can understand the appeal of the Nazi youth for a young German kid. All of your friends are joining the group and you get to hang out and do activities with them like hiking and swimming, and you can rank up and get uniforms and badges that reflect where you are in ranking and whatnot. I don't think it's super far-fetched and difficult to understand why Sophie and many of her colleagues were excited about the opportunity to join the League. Sophie took a lot of heat for her enthusiasm back home, though. Her father was vehement in his anti-Nazi views and was heartbroken that his daughter, as well as two of his sons, had joined the Hitler Youth.
Wasn't it a requirement?
It was a requirement, but I don't know. I think he was so strong in his anti-Nazi beliefs that he just was like really disappointed in his kids for joining and then enjoying it.
Yeah.
And he made this known, too. He was not quiet about it. In fact, there is this quote that came from Sophie's father, Robert Scholl, in which he stated to his children, "All I want is for you to walk straight and free through life, even when it's hard." Robert Scholl was very vocal about his political platform of disapproval of the Nazi movement. He was actually the mayor of Ingersheim.
Good job.
Thanks. He was actually the mayor of Ingersheim for 10 years and served 4 months in prison once for calling Hitler the scourge of humanity. As we all know, September 1st, 1939 goes down in history as the day that Hitler and the Nazis invaded Poland, thus starting World War II. Sophie's older brothers were sent off to fight in the war along the front lines. Sophie, trying to figure out what she was going to do with her life after graduating high school, just a handful of months after the war began, decided she wanted to study biology and philosophy at university. In order to be allowed to do this, though, she was required under Hitler's leadership to work for the state in the National Labor Service, or as Leah will pronounce for us, the
Reichsarbeitsdienst. That was wrong. That was totally wrong. I don't know.
Reichsarbeitsdienst.
Sophie was under the impression that if she worked as a kindergarten teacher for a short period of time, this would substitute her service in the National Labor Service, and so that's what she did. Unfortunately for her, this didn't work. If she was going to go to university, she would have to serve in the National Labor Service. And this here is where her break with the Nazi movement began. She despised her year in service. As she says, it broke her soul. She hated the war. She hated that it ripped her family apart. She hated that her boyfriend, Fritz Hartnagel, was sent off to war and that they could only communicate via letters, which they did so for 6 years.
Wow, talk about a long distance relationship.
Long distance and long term.
Yeah. Going the distance.
She's going the distance. She's going for
speed. She's all alone, all alone, all alone in a time of need.
It's better than it's been.
You just did it.
I just did it. Okay. In May of 1942, Sophie joined alongside her medical student brother Hans and became a student at the University of Munich. Hans had been one of the brothers that had served on the front lines of the war for the German cause, and so he saw firsthand the horrors of war and the evil acts that the Nazi Party were committing. One of those horrors being watching Nazis shoot naked Jews point blank and throwing them into pits. Unbeknownst to Sophie, her brother and his buddies had actually started a movement on campus, a movement that would be known as the White Rose Movement, that developed anti-Nazi pamphlets that were distributed across the school in an attempt to reach other students and persuade them to the anti-Nazi cause. Over the course of the summer of 1942, 4 leaflets were put together and distributed across Germany. Not just across campus, but across the entire country. We're talking Vienna and Berlin and Hamburg, just to name a few of the places where these leaflets showed up.
That's awesome.
So cool. Sophie had seen the leaflets across campus and, upon learning of her brother's involvement, demanded to join the White Rose Movement. Alongside the 5 other male members of the group, Sophie ended up being invaluable to the group as a woman. Her involvement would not be easily suspected by the SS. She was instrumental in obtaining postage from different post offices as to avoid suspicion, obtaining addresses of affluent people such as authors and professors to mail the pamphlets to, and managing distribution of the pamphlets throughout the country. Not only did this help the White Rose group reach a greater audience, but it also helped to throw off the scent of where the group resided. This group of 6 people working out of a small apartment was doing all they could to convince the Nazis that the resistance was a major operation composed of thousands of members across the country. It is believed that by the time they were onto their 5th pamphlet, they had mass-produced and distributed anywhere from 6,000 to 9,000 of them. This episode is brought to you by Best Fiends.
Okay, guys. Now, you know here on #history that we love researching and discussing some pretty dark histories, which means that sometimes we need a little something to take our minds off of all of the corruption and carnage we put ourselves through.
Our most recent getaway tool has been the mobile puzzle game Best Fiends. Best Fiends is a puzzle game that you can play right off of your phone. Engage your brain with fun puzzles and collect tons of cute characters. Trust me, with over 100 million downloads, this 5-star rated mobile puzzle game is a must-play. What's even better is that this game doesn't require internet, so you can play it anywhere, anytime. I just downloaded the game and have already made it to level 30 in one day. Is that bad?
No, because I downloaded it today and I'm on level 23, so I'm really not that far behind you.
The best thing about Best Fiends is you can spend as much or as little time as you want on it. But let me tell you, once you get started, you won't want to stop.
This game is visually stimulating with bright colors and super cute characters, plus Best Fiends updates the game monthly with new levels and events so it never gets old. Download Best Fiends free on the Apple App Store or Google Play. That's friends without the R. Best Fiends.
Hey guys, it's Rachel. Now you know on the Hashtag History podcast, we are all about girl power. Something else we are all about is entrepreneurship, building multiple streams of income, and creating flexibility in your work lifestyle. That's why I am so excited to introduce you to the Girl Means Business podcast. It's a weekly podcast hosted by former teacher turned entrepreneur Kendra Swalls. Each week, Kendra and her guest share business and marketing tips, along with honest conversations about what it means to be a boss babe, balancing a business while still having a life. For any other podcasters and entrepreneurs out there, I think you could all take something away from one of my personal favorite episodes called How I Use Instagram to Grow My Business. Or something that could come in handy for many of us during this time of quarantine is Kendra's episode titled A Work From Home Survival Guide. New episodes go live every Wednesday on iTunes, Spotify, and anywhere else that you listen to your favorite podcast. Make sure you subscribe so you get notified when new episodes go live, and check out the Girl Means Business Facebook group for bonus materials and more in-depth conversations. Check out girlmeansbusiness.com/podcast for all the details. In light of the support that they were receiving, in addition to the massive German loss of Stalingrad in February of 1943, the resistance groups started getting bolder. They began handing out the pamphlets personally, as opposed to mailing them, and they began to tag walls and buildings throughout Germany with words such as freedom and down with Hitler.
Ugh. I mean, good for them, but also, ugh, no.
Yeah,
dangerous.
I know. At the same time, it makes you kind of like cringe a little.
Yeah.
On February 18th, 1943, Hans and Sophie Scholl took to distributing what would be their final pamphlet, the sixth pamphlet of the White Rose Resistance. They brought along with them to the university a suitcase full of the pamphlets that they then left throughout the halls of the school for students to find when they exited the classrooms. With some pamphlets still left over, Sophie, who was on an upper level deck, took them and threw them over the railing to fall down to the floor below.
Oh my God, that's
which
totally
is
like a scene from a movie. What am I thinking of?
I don't know what movie, but, well, actually, there's been a movie about Sophie Scholl. I don't know if maybe you've seen it or people have just kind of copied that. But what a freaking iconic scene, just imagining that.
No, it was 10 Things I Hate About You. That's what I was thinking of.
10 Things I Hate About You. Remind me, because I love that movie. What part?
They like throw, it was like they were inviting people to a party at some guy's house, and they like throw.
Well, you know, 10 Things I Hate About You is based on a Shakespeare play.
Yeah,
Taming the
Shrew.
Shrew.
Yeah.
Yep. So maybe they also took a little from Sophie Scholl.
Yeah, yeah.
Or maybe that's just not that original. But really, that's like such a freaking iconic scene.
Yeah.
Like she's a young 21, 22-year-old girl just trying to spread the word of the anti-Nazi movement. And when she realized she had extra pamphlets left over, threw them over the railing at the university. And the really cool thing is there's a picture still of the atrium where Sophie did this. So go ahead and check it out, Leah.
Yeah, looks like an atrium. I can totally imagine someone like throwing it being like a momentous occasion, though. I see what you're getting at there.
Now, unfortunately, it was that amazing and iconic move that would end up nailing Hans and Sophie. A janitor by the name of Jacob Schmid witnessed Sophie throwing the pamphlets over the railing and reported her and her brother to the Gestapo. The Scholls, along with other members of the White Rose Resistance, were arrested. And then here's a picture of Hans and Sophie's mugshots, Leah.
Hello, Hans. No. They're very obviously related, but yeah, it's just like your typical mugshots. My biggest takeaway from... Oh, There's like something poking into the back of their head.
I knew you were going to bring that up. I really tried to do a lot of research. When you look at I couldn't find the information. When you look at their profile, we'll post this picture to Instagram. When you look at the profile shot, there is like a thing poking into the back of their heads. I'm assuming just to kind of keep them like
position them correctly.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
But my biggest takeaway from these is that they look very calm. Almost proud, which I'm sure they were proud of what they did.
Yeah. Sophie, her brother, and another member of the resistance were all charged with treason. Sophie was insistent that she receive the same punishment as the men, as she was just as guilty as they were. Believing that the White Rose was a massive organization, the Gestapo demanded names, but Sophie refused. She never gave anyone else up and accepted all responsibility for her actions. Sophie, in particular, was interrogated for 17 hours, and when she appeared in court days later, she arrived with a broken leg.
Oh my gosh.
Yes. Given no opportunity to speak at the trial, Sophie interrupted the Nazi-supporting judge to declare of what they had done. Somebody had to make a start. What we said and wrote are what many people are thinking. They just don't dare say it out loud. What a freaking badass is she?
Yeah.
The Scholl's parents were refused admittance to court. When the Scholl matriarch pleaded with the guards to let her in, as she was the mother of two of those that stood accused, the guard told her, "You should have raised them up better." The three were sentenced to death by guillotine within just hours of the guilty verdict. Hans and Sophie were each individually allowed to see their parents for a brief moment before their deaths. When Mrs. Scholl cried to Sophie that she was devastated that she would never see her daughter again, Sophie responded, "Oh, mother, after all, it's only a few years more life I'll miss." And basically by that statement, she's saying even if this event had never occurred, Sophie still did not envision herself living much longer.
Yeah. I mean, I kind of doubt anybody envisioned themselves living very long at this point in time.
Yeah, especially if, the overwhelming government is, it's the Nazis and you are anti-Nazi. You don't envision a long life.
Yeah, my biggest thing is I did not know that, they were still using the guillotine at this point in history.
You know what? That was moving to me too.
Hey guys, so after recording this episode, I went and did some additional research about the history of guillotines so I could provide you some more background, and this is pretty fascinating stuff. So while the guillotine is obviously most well known for its claim to fame during the French Revolution, it actually had somewhat of a second wave of popularity in Germany under Hitler's reign. Hitler actually made execution by guillotine a common execution tactic and killed nearly 17,000 by guillotine, most of them being members of the resistance, in the years between 1933 and the end of the war in 1945. Believe it or not, but the guillotine was actually last used in the 1970s. Okay, and now back to your regularly scheduled program.
Hans Scholl, Sophie Scholl, and Christoph Bromst. So, this is just the Frozen movie because we have both Hans and Christoph in here.
Yeah.
They were all executed by guillotine on February 22nd, 1943. Sophie was only 21 years old. Her last words as she was about to be beheaded were, "Such a fine sunny day and I have to go. What does my death matter if through us thousands of people are awakened and stirred to action?" And then, in her final breath, she said, "Die Sonne scheint nah," or in English, "the sun still shines." Sophie's copy of her indictment was later found, in which she had scribbled something on the back. Leah, could you take a look at her indictment, the flip side of it, and let me know what you see there?
Yes. Wait, that's not it. Is it Freiheit?
Yep, that's exactly how you say it. Do you know what that is in English?
Girl, I didn't take... What is this, German? No.
So Sophie wrote on the back of her indictment the word Freiheit in German, which in English that means freedom. So why do we talk about Sophie Scholl still to this day? Of course, because she was a total badass and incredibly inspiring in the way she put her life on the line for a moral and just cause. But ultimately, the White Rose movement didn't stop the war. It didn't persuade all of Germany. Sophie's execution was not a public execution, and it wasn't widely publicized. In fact, horrifically, that janitor that had reported the White Roses in the first place, Jacob Schmid, he was a member of the Nazi Party and was given a standing ovation at a pro-Nazi rally held at the university following Sophie's execution. Ugh. So again, why do we talk about Sophie Scholl? Holocaust historian Judd Newborn said it perfectly. He said, you cannot really measure the effect of this kind of resistance in whether or not X number of bridges were blown up or a regime fell. The White Rose really has a more symbolic value, and that's a very important value. That last leaflet that Sophie and her brother distributed was smuggled out of Germany and distributed to the UK. In mid-1943, the Allied forces made millions of copies of it and dropped them over Germany. How freaking cool is that?
That's so cool.
Sophie Scholl is considered a hero in Germany, particularly in her hometown of Ulm. There's schools and streets named after her. In fact, I read somewhere in all of my research that in Germany, the name Scholl is synonymous with the word freedom. And just because I said earlier that I would mention it at some point in this episode, simply because it's a fascinating little tidbit of information, remember how I mentioned at the top of the episode Sophie's sister Elizabeth, who turned 100 years old earlier this year? Mm-hmm. She actually ended up marrying Sophie's boyfriend, that guy that Sophie was writing for 6 years.
What?
And they ended up having 4 kids together. And that's all.
Cool. Okay.
Thank you guys so much for listening to this episode of Hashtag History. We are thinking of you in this difficult time in our world with the coronavirus, and we just really want to thank you so much for spending the time listening to our podcast and being so amazing and so supportive. As always, we will post the pictures from this episode to our Instagram, and all of our sources to put this episode together can be found on our website. If you enjoyed the episode, do us a favor and subscribe to Hashtag History on whatever podcast platform you use. Share it with a friend and give us a rate and review. But really, guys, go give us a rate and review.
Please.
We don't just say that to say that. That's how we become visible to other people that are searching for a new podcast to listen to. The algorithms base it off of the number of ratings and reviews. So please go and do that.
And be sure, as always, to check us out on Instagram at #history_podcast. We're always doing super cool stuff on there.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. She became at the University of Munich. Let's do that again.
As we discussed, what the heck? I literally can't say anything right.
Every part of me is sweaty, particularly the palms and the bottoms of the feet.
It's my buttocks.
Yeah.
I got small
on
ass.
The leather seats.
Oh, gosh.
Sophie Scholl was born. Sophia. Okay, that was so aggressive. I'm going to do it again. I was like, Sophie Scholl. Hey, what the?
Oh my god.
Okay. Was the encouragement of creating. I said, yes, did I say nude? That's exactly what I say. Okay, should I go back? She hated that her boyfriend joined the, hold on, I looked it up. Oh, your mouth.
Yeah.
Okay, hold on. Joined the.
I was hoping you didn't hear him.
No, I only just heard him right there because I took a pause. She had to join. Bless
Sorry.
you.
My God.
Do you think you can pronounce this word better than I could? It's
Dao Chum. No.
But the Dao is like Dao. Okay. I'm gonna. You know what? That's gonna be where we're gonna insert someone, and we need to insert like a male voice or something saying it, so it's even funnier. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Let me say it again.
Now you know how I feel.
Yep. Regarding not not, I'm going to say associating. And persuade them to the antsy. God.
That's actually how they spell it, like 3 H's.
Well, because I was afraid I was going to end up saying it like notch or whatever, but it's nah. In fact, one of Sophie's sisters, Isabel Hartnagel Scholl, was...
Elizabeth.
What did I say? 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 What did I say?
Sorry, I can't breathe. Hold on. You said Isabel. Who's Isabel? You just kept on going, too.
Those aren't even the same letters. None of those letters are the same.
Oh my god, this is making me hotter.
I'm actually crying. Oh my god. I thought you were gonna, you know why? You know why I kept going was because I was really stressed about the Hartnagel part, and I thought you were gonna say something about that part. You were gonna say like, dude, that's not how you pronounce that.
I know you pronounced that part beautifully. You just called her Isabel.
I believe I said Isabel. None of the letters are the same.
Oh.
Okay, here we go. Yeah, but we're going to get back to Elizabeth at some point in this episode, so remember her name.
That's Elizabeth.
Okay, that's pretty f***ing funny that I said that. Okay, let me do that again.